Money reveals the best and the worst in people. Mariana had always believed that this phrase was just a cliché, something said in casual conversation to justify the wrong choices of others. But at that moment, as she watched Jorge, her husband of decades, act like a stranger next to her, she realized that the saying carried a bitter truth. They had lived years of simplicity and unity, overcoming challenges together. However, when fortune finally knocked, bringing an unexpected fortune, Mariana discovered that the real challenge was not the money, but the person she chose to share it with, or so she thought. Jorge, who had always been the pillar of the house, was now willing to destroy everything behind a promise of wealth. And Mariana? She had to decide whether to fight for what was rightfully hers or let Jorge follow a path of no return, believing he could cheat fate and the woman who had always been by his side. Mariana and Jorge were the kind of couple who, in the eyes of others, seemed destined to live together forever. They met at a young age, when Mariana, at 20, was working as an attendant in a small bakery on the corner of the street where Jorge lived. He, 3 years her senior, was a dedicated and hard-working young man, always willing to help others. It was this kindness that first attracted Mariana, who saw in Jorge not only a man of character, but someone with whom she could build a life. Over the years, they married and faced the challenges that life threw at them. Jorge became a plumber, and Mariana, although she never had great ambitions, dedicated herself to creating a welcoming home, where every detail reflected her love for the family they had formed. They had no children, but they filled that void with a solid union that seemed unshakable, even in the face of the financial difficulties that often arose. The life they built was simple, marked by days of hard work and evenings when they sat together in the living room, talking about everything and nothing, while the television played in the background. For Mariana, these moments were precious, proof that, despite all her limitations, she had everything she needed by Jorge's side. But for him, there was something that was always missing, a void that he tried to fill with small gestures of luck, like the lottery tickets he bought religiously every week. When Jorge turned 50, this seemingly harmless routine changed. The lottery ticket he bought on an ordinary Wednesday turned out to be the winner of an unimaginable fortune. In that instant, as he stared in disbelief at the numbers on the screen, Jorge realized that his life would never be the same again. But instead of sharing this joy with Mariana, a shadow of greed began to grow inside him. Over the next few days, Mariana realized that something had changed. Jorge, who had always been an open and affectionate man, became mysterious and distant. Conversations that used to flow easily between them were now interrupted by uncomfortable silences. Mariana, unable to understand what was happening, began to feel increasingly isolated, as if she was losing contact with the man she loved. Then, one apparently quiet afternoon, Lara, the 25-year-old daughter of neighbor Mrs. Helena, showed up at Mariana's house. Lara was a bright young woman who was studying law and had a promising future ahead of her. She always had a special affection for Mariana, who saw her almost as a niece. As she sat with Mariana on the balcony, Lara brought with her a shocking revelation. She had overheard Jorge telling his mother that he had won the lottery and was planning to divorce Mariana in order to keep all the money. Mariana was stunned by the news. The idea that Jorge, the man she had shared her life with, was willing to betray her for money was inconceivable. But while anger and sadness struggled to dominate her thoughts, Mariana felt a cold calm come over her. She knew she couldn't allow Jorge to deceive her like this. With the help of Lara, who refused to let Mariana face this battle alone, they began to plan a counterattack. Mariana began to pay more attention to Jorge, watching his movements and looking for any clue that might confirm the betrayal. He was more relaxed than ever, convinced that his secret was safe. Jorge used to leave his wallet on the bedside table before going to sleep, certain that no one would suspect a thing. But Mariana knew that sooner or later Jorge would make a mistake, and when he did, she would be ready. That sunny morning, while Jorge was showering, Mariana finally got her chance. With trembling hands, she opened Jorge's wallet and, among the papers and cards, found the lottery ticket. There it was, the piece of paper that could change everything. Mariana looked at the ticket and knew that now it was her turn to decide the fate of her life. Mariana held the lottery ticket in her hands, feeling a mixture of relief and anger. She knew that this piece of paper represented not only a fortune, but also Jorge's betrayal and the end of a marriage that she believed to be unshakable. With the note in her possession, Mariana realized that she had the opportunity to turn the tables, but she had to act carefully. She hid the note in a safe place and prepared to confront Jorge, but this time with a well-planned strategy. With Lara's support, Mariana gathered all the evidence to prove that Jorge was trying to hide the prize. They documented conversations, Jorge's suspicious movements and even his attempts to pressure Mariana into signing the divorce papers for no apparent reason. Lara, using her legal knowledge, sought advice from professors and lawyers, ensuring that Mariana had a solid foundation to protect herself. Meanwhile, Jorge continued to act as if he was in complete control of the situation. He believed that Mariana was about to give in, as she had become quieter and more introspective, without showing any apparent resistance. For him, everything was going according to plan, and it was only a matter of time before he could extricate himself from the marriage and enjoy his fortune alone. However, Mariana was far from being the submissive woman Jorge imagined. On the contrary, she was focused on protecting what was rightfully hers. One afternoon, noticing that Jorge was becoming especially impatient and more insistent about the divorce, Mariana decided it was time to take the next step. She arranged to meet Jorge in a discreet restaurant in the city, saying that she needed to talk about the future. Jorge, confident that Mariana was finally willing to sign the papers, arrived at the restaurant with a satisfied smile. As they sat down, Mariana looked him in the eye, and for the first time in weeks, Jorge felt a tension in the air that he couldn't decipher. Mariana began to speak in a calm, controlled way, recalling the years they had spent together, the struggles they had faced and how she had always believed that they shared the same dreams. Jorge nodded, pretending to understand, but all he wanted was to end the conversation in order to complete his plan. Then, with a serenity that surprised Jorge, Mariana took the lottery ticket out of her bag and placed it on the table. Jorge was paralyzed, the smile disappearing from his face. "Is this the ticket you were trying to hide from me, Jorge?" Mariana asked, keeping her gaze steady. Jorge tried to disguise his shock, but his hands were shaking as he tried to regain control of the situation. "How did you?" he started to say, but his voice failed him. "I always knew something was wrong," Mariana continued. "And now, I know that you were willing to cheat me, to leave me with nothing, just to have all the money for yourself. But now things have changed, Jorge. I have the note, and I have the proof that you were trying to cheat me." Jorge looked at Mariana, realizing for the first time that he had profoundly underestimated his wife's strength. He tried to argue, making excuses and promises of reconciliation, but Mariana wasn't willing to believe his words. With Lara's help, Mariana had prepared everything to ensure that Jorge could not escape the consequences of his actions. They had the necessary documents and evidence to prevent Jorge from claiming the prize on his own. However, Mariana knew she didn't want to drag everything out into a protracted and exhausting legal battle. She wanted to resolve everything with dignity and justice, without lowering herself to Jorge's level. "Let's split the prize," said Mariana, her voice firm but without rancor. "Half for you and half for me. But the marriage is over, Jorge. You made your choice, and now I'm making mine." Jorge, realizing he had no way out, agreed, albeit reluctantly. He knew that, even though he had received half the prize, he had lost much more than money. He had lost Mariana's trust and respect, and with it, the life they had built together. In the days that followed, Mariana and Jorge formalized their divorce and the division of the lottery winnings. Mariana, now free from the bonds of a broken relationship, used her share of the money to start again. She opened a small cafe in town, something she had always dreamed of doing, and with Lara's support, also helped the young woman to continue her law studies. Mariana not only rebuilt her life, but also found new reasons to smile, surrounded by true friends and a new outlook on life. Jorge, on the other hand, faced the consequences of his thoughtless choices. Without Mariana's support, he found himself increasingly isolated, realizing too late that the true value of life was not in money, but in the people around him. Mariana moved on, stronger than ever, knowing that true fortune didn't lie in a lottery ticket, but in the courage to fight for what was right. And with Lara by her side, she knew she would never be alone again.